Hello, and welcome to Two Dads, One Show. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Tim.
I'm Grant.
We're the two dads, and this is the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is going to be episode 7, so part 2 of Miscarriage and Loss. Thank you guys for coming back. I know this last one was a tough one because this is my perspective, and we actually have a special guest today. My wife, Charity, is going to be here to kind of give us her thoughts. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.
Of course. So you obviously listened to the last episode.
Yes.
Yes.
Every episode.
Okay. Of course. How did that go?
It was definitely different hearing your side with the audience of people we know and don't know, but not me. And so just hearing you talk about what we went through in that kind of a way was, it was good, really good. But yeah, just different take.
Did you disagree with anything?
No. No, I think you got everything pretty much how it happened. So that was good that you remembered.
Was there anything that surprised you?
I think just hearing how much our first loss affected you. Mm-hmm. I know, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but how much it affected me. And I think that you were trying to be the rock. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't privy to a lot of those feelings, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know. I mean, I could have been and just wasn't picking up on them because of how I was feeling. But I think that was just knowing how greatly you felt that was surprising.
Yeah. I'm glad I still can surprise you after this long. So I guess, is this weird being on the show?
Be honest, right now we're sitting real close to a microphone across from each other. That's a little interesting, but no, I'm glad that I get to be a part of this.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. So I guess without further ado, kind of how do you want to start this? Where do you want to go?
Well, I mean, obviously, hopefully everyone listened to the last episode, and if they haven't, maybe go back, pause this one, listen to that one. So I won't rehash all of the things that happened. I guess mostly just trying to give my perspective and what it was like for me going through those losses. And, the first one being, I guess, emotional whiplash would be a way to talk about it. That was very difficult. And, you're going through something with your partner. You obviously were both part of creating this baby, and going through it together is hard, but being the woman, the physical side of it, a man can't understand that, obviously, but can be there for their partner through it. But going through the physical part of it is just I think a unique side, mm-hmm. Different than what was explained last time. And so, with the first one, the physical pain was surprising to me. We weren't that far along, but to have labor-like feelings, and, I very vividly remember them. And I remember the emergency room doctor basically saying, at this point, you're having a miscarriage. Can I please give you some pain medication? Because he could even see how in pain I was. And I didn't expect that. I mean, obviously, we didn't expect what was happening to be happening at all.
Sure. Yeah.
But just that side of it was unexpected. And, as the woman, you're the one that's pregnant. You're the one that's carrying the baby. That felt like that's my job, and I was failing at it. Mm-hmm. And going through the emotions of trying to understand why my body was failing me, and I was failing at this job that I had to do. And that kind of seems callous calling it a job, but that's how it went, is like, this is what's supposed to happen this is my job, is to carry this baby until it's born and keep it safe. And here I am failing at this, trying to wrap all of those emotions in my head. And then to get the call the next day, oh, your levels look great, from someone, like you said last time, that didn't know. They were just told to call. Sure. But to have that, wait, what? You mean I'm still pregnant? Our levels are moving how they're supposed to? And then your mind wanders to, well, was it twins? And maybe we lost a twin, but the other one's still there. There's just, especially as first-time parents, we don't know all of these things. And so it kind of gave us a little bit of hope. I kind of feel, at least for me, it did, that, obviously a loss is a loss, but knowing that there could potentially still be a baby there, that gave me hope.
Did you feel one way or another, like when we were in the hospital, like in the next day? Did you 100% know either way, like just your intuition?
I think so. Yeah. I think even when they called back, even with that little bit of hope, I didn't think it was there. What I went through physically was, I wouldn't have understood how I could have still been pregnant if that's how the story had gone. It didn't go that way, but I would have had a really hard time understanding, that aspect. So, and then going in and having the ultrasound, them basically finding nothing and ruling it as an ectopic pregnancy, trying to understand that. And it's like, what do you mean the baby can grow somewhere else? Like, I thought there was really only one place that it could grow. And so just trying to work through those feelings and understanding, that my body thinks it's pregnant somewhere, but we don't see anything.
Yeah.
And, again, having to go through, well, your body's not done. We need to help it finish the miscarriage, and getting shots and going through that, and just trying to process this loss with all of this other stuff that we have to do. I can still see the marks on my arms from the amount of blood testing that they had to do to make sure that not only was my body done, but the medication was out of my system, because the medication that they use is actually one that they use sometimes with cancer patients. So it's a pretty hefty medication. And, knowing that we were actively trying, they wanted to make sure that that was out of my system before we even thought about trying again. And so that was just a lot to try and take on, and a lot to try and process. And you talked a little bit on the last episode about things to not say to people. And I remember the nurse that was giving me the shots, when we had to go into the hospital to receive them, she said that she had gone through a miscarriage, and that she just looked at it as she wouldn't have the baby that she had now, because if she had had the other baby, she wouldn't have had this baby. And while that's true, when you're going through it, like, of course, our oldest was our rainbow baby after that loss. And of course I want her still, but I also wanted that baby. And that did not seem to me very comforting, having to reconcile that. For me, was not helpful.
I will say that I didn't remember that conversation right off the bat during the last kind of run through, but I remember it vividly, that we remember it being powerful in the moment. Like, she was emotional, because she was kind of explaining what she had gone through, and it was like a glimmer of hope, but in the moment you don't want hope, you have anger. And I wasn't ready to let go of that yet. The anger and the frustration, and it was all the negative feelings that were there that I look back on it now and I wonder if to her, how we, or at least I'll say for me, how I handled that, was that an appropriate response for this, for what she was opening up to. And realizing that right now, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I handled that in front of this woman who opened herself up to try and help someone who was in pain. And I think if we would have maybe heard that 6 months later, a year later, that would have been a lot more impactful. But in the moment was very just like, okay, cool. Can we get to the next thing, so that I'm still ready to be mad. I'm not ready to like be done with that yet.
Yeah. And if my mom brain memory serves me right, I think that you handled it well.
Sure.
I don't think that she felt brushed off or, anything like that. I think, it was more like, oh yeah, thanks for sharing. I think it was totally fine.
Sure.
But that whole process with the miscarriage, oh wait, you could still be pregnant. Oh wait, no, you're not. Oh wait, now we have to do this. All of that very deeply affected me just as a human being. And I know that you spoke on the last episode about the depression that came with that. And I don't think I realized the extent of your depression. My depression was severe. And I remember even talking with my OB, kind of following and being pregnant with our eldest. It was postpartum depression is basically what she said. And I didn't realize that you can get that even after a miscarriage. And she kind of explained, well, you still had those hormones in your body and you lost a baby. And just like, of course, that's postpartum depression. But my depression was very severe. I mean, I remember taking a shower and just sobbing in the shower for hours throughout the week. Just like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? This isn't fair. And, just a lot of feelings. And, again, I felt like a failure. Like I had a job to do. I was here to be this safe space for this baby, and I failed. And I was very severely depressed. But I didn't communicate it to you. And I think if anyone's listening that maybe has gone through a similar thing, or God forbid you end up going through a similar thing, communicating with your partner is key to grieving and healing and success in your marriage. Not communicating. I remember one night we sat down for dinner and, it's just the two of us. And I kind of just remember asking you, like, should we even be married still? Like the depression was that great that the only way that I could figure out how to get out of it was to get out of our marriage, which, I mean, we're still here today. Yes. So we worked through it, but that's how dark it was. And that wasn't rock bottom for me. You mentioned our trip to California around Christmas time that year. And I think I told you after the fact, not during the drive, but there's a couple parts in the drive that are along a lake, and it was my turn to drive. It's a very long drive from here down to there. And I had thoughts of just pulling the car off the side and going into the lake, and it would be the end of it all. And that was not the first time that I had those kinds of thoughts. In this deep depression that I found myself in after that loss. And I don't really know what got us out of that. I know we kind of reached a point where the medication that they had used was out of my system, and we were kind of given the green light to try again.
I think even before that, though, it was, I know I mentioned it in the last episode, but it was definitely like we had to just talk about it because there was just a lot of things that neither one of us were saying to one another. And it's not that we didn't have good communication skills back then. It's a different kind of communication. And I think we weren't there to be able to do that. I don't think anybody is necessarily prepared for that, but we were just like, we have to say things and know that we're in a safe space and we're in a place where we're not going to get mad at one. We just have to say things that start breaking down that wall of non-communication of real feelings. Like, we were obviously fine, but it was like fine marriage-wise. There was a lot of emotional stuff there, but it was definitely like, okay, we got to start stopping just with the surface stuff. Yeah. We got to get down and we got to get in it, because if we want to continue as a married couple and if we want to continue as parents eventually, that we would have to get through that. And I think that's what happened. And, you know, communication is always something that we're going to work on. We're a lot better today than we were yesterday compared to 6 months ago, compared to a year ago. I mean, it's always something that you'll get better at, and we're a lot better now than we have ever been, I would say.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to communicate those things, and I think that's what was the main thing. And it's interesting because you kind of talked about your depression kind of manifested in kind of pushing it down, and just kind of, and that's what mine did too, except I was watching a lot of murder documentary stuff.
I remember
that. It was like, I think back on it now, and it's like that was my way of solving what happened, was watching First 48, let's say, right? And there's usually a conclusion where this happened, and then there was and I was like, yeah, there's finally a you know, something that has a makes sense in the weirdest sense, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that was the main thing, was communication for us.
And I think the other part that we didn't do that didn't help is we didn't treat it as a loss.
Mm-hmm.
A miscarriage, and you mentioned this, 1 in 4 women will have a miscarriage. And honestly, I felt like after our first, well, I was the 1 in 4, okay, never again. No, 1 in 4 pregnancies, kind of, I think, is a better way to say that.
Yeah.
It's not just 1 in 4 women, but, you know, it's incredibly common, but it's very taboo to talk about.
So here's a question for you. So obviously people knew that you had been pregnant and then you had a miscarriage. Did that make other people open up to you about things that had happened to them?
Sort of. Where I was working at the time, and this is kind of what I was also tying this to, is I think that we went to the emergency room on a Thursday, obviously took the next day off, but then I went back to work Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people were surprised to see me back at work. And, you know, I remember we got like flowers the next day from our family. And to me, it was just like, why are people sending me flowers? Like, why wouldn't I come back to work? I didn't understand that I should have treated it like the loss that it was, and not just, oh, well, you know, here we go, let's get back to life. You know, like, I didn't give myself space to grieve the loss that we had. And so coming back to work, definitely a lot more people were vocal, I think, because they were surprised to see me back already.
Sure.
And I remember one of my coworkers, you know, she had mentioned that she had had a miscarriage, but I think, like, society presses it off. It was just like, oh yeah, I had one of those, and then, like, keep going. Like, I don't think anyone really there, at least, opened up, like, well, about maybe their experiences. It was kind of what most people expect.
Yeah.
It's commonplace. You move on. Like, it's kind of the feeling that I had gotten. And so I think that was part of the problem is, no, it's a loss, and it doesn't matter how far along you are. It's still a loss. And obviously there's different trauma you know, we know people that have lost their baby at 21 weeks. And, you know, you have a baby at that point. There's, you know, somebody that you're holding in your arms. And while we didn't have anyone to hold in our arms, it's still a life that was lost that you were excited about and you were happy about and you were planning for. And even if you don't get to hold the one that you loved that you lost, you still feel it because there were plans and excitement and feelings. And, you know, you mentioned part of our grieving process was naming. And to me, that is the best thing that I think we could have ever done for our healing, because it spoke to what happened. We lost a baby. We lost a daughter. And she will forever be in my heart. And I think about her every single day. I do both of them. And that, I think, gives meaning to the weight.
Yeah.
And having this person that has a name that you think about. I mean, I wear all of our girls' names around my neck every day. And that really helped me with grieving, because it validated that it wasn't just a pregnancy, it was a person that we were losing and feeling for. And so that was huge for me.
Yeah. And I think we also got tattoos.
Yes.
For our first, we're doing them for both. The second one isn't completed yet, but that's okay. But that's another way of memorializing is or recognizing, right? They may not be here, but they're never forgotten.
Yeah. I have we have for mine, my oldest daughter that is here with us, and our first loss, their birth month flowers. And so it's my little garden that I've started. I still need to get our second miscarriage and our youngest. But I kind of reached a point where until we know we're 100% done having kids, maybe I'll hold off on finishing my garden. But yeah, that definitely, does that for us. And then, you know, they call babies after loss rainbow babies. You know, it's the rainbow after the storm. So we had our oldest, our rainbow baby, and then decided we were ready to try and grow our family again. And as you shared last time, that didn't go well. That one was very different. I knew something was off from the beginning. I just did. And I was sick, which was comforting in a way. I remember with the first, I wasn't sick, and we found out very late. And with our oldest, we found out much earlier, and I was sick right away. And I remember my OB saying, just the fact that you're sick is a great sign, because that means that you have that level of hormones. So with our second miscarriage, I was sick, so I was trying to be hopeful, but I just knew inside of me that something was off. And so we had the blood test done. Oh, everything looks great. We'll see you in 10 weeks for your dating ultrasound. Okay, you know, my stomach was growing. I was like, okay, maybe my intuition is off. Maybe I'm wrong. Food aversions, you mentioned that, and all of that kind of stuff. And then we got to the ultrasound, and she just placed the probe down, and I immediately knew there's nothing there. And it wasn't that there wasn't anything there, but the size of it was not right for how far along I should have been. And she even kind of said, well, maybe you're just not as far along as we think you are. And I think she was trying to be hopeful, but everyone knew that wasn't the case. And so did some more blood work and stuff, and it kind of confirmed that, the baby had stopped growing. And and my body wasn't recognizing it. And, you spoke about this a little bit last time, but I was a teacher at the time, and it was August. School year is about to start. So, tried to let my body do it naturally, but just the emotional trauma of waiting for this horrible thing that I've already been through to happen again, and let alone worrying about trying to get my classroom set up and taking care of our oldest, which she was a godsend in that situation, because she was a good distraction, and we had her to kind of keep us grounded. But that was difficult because of the timing of everything. So the decision to have the surgery was the best one that we needed to make for us and our family and my mental health. Not an easy one to make by any means. No. I mean, surgery is a big deal, regardless of what, anesthesia and all of the stuff. And so that one was difficult in a different way. And I remember being very bitter afterwards. Some depression, but I let myself grieve that time. I mean, I did go back to work, but I kind of had to sooner than I think I would have let myself if I had the choice. But it was just very different. I was very bitter. I was very angry. Like, why? Why is this happening again? I thought it was supposed to be 1 in 4, not 2, This should only happen to somebody one time, not multiple times. And the knowledge that I have now, I mean, I know people that have had 8 miscarriages.
Wow.
That have had 10 miscarriages,
Jeez.
You can call us quote unquote lucky for just the 2 that we've had, if you want to think of it that way. But obviously I don't think even somebody who has had 1 is lucky. I wouldn't consider them that way.
Would you, going through what we've gone through, what you've gone through, would you tell people who are trying to get pregnant, like, mentally prepare for a possible miscarriage, or would you even want to put that in someone's brain, knowing that it is 1 in 4? How does that change how you talk to people?
No, I wouldn't say it to someone, because I think most people, I mean, that might be assuming a little too much, but people are aware of it, maybe not in depth, but once you have that loss, every pregnancy afterwards is terrifying. Yeah. Every moment, even at 8 months, it's terrifying. Yeah. And especially at the beginning. And I am envious of people that have never had to go through that and have had to worry a little bit because they know about it maybe, but not like we have had to worry, because I feel like I'm jealous because I feel like they got to enjoy their pregnancies to a level that I will never enjoy a pregnancy.
You do enjoy pregnancy though?
I do, yes. That's not to say that I don't enjoy it, but there's always in the back of my mind, sure, this is what I've been through. What if it happens again? Yeah. And to enjoy it to that level where you don't have that in the back of your mind, I'll never know, because we lost our first. Yeah. And so, with our oldest, just the whole pregnancy was, even at 20 weeks, like, it's okay, here it is. We know the gender, but there's always the chance. Okay, here we are at 24 weeks, the week of viability. That's great, but there's still always that chance. Sure. And so every pregnancy is just terrifying. It's just terrifying. And I do enjoy them. I love the bump. I love all of that. And I think that's part of what made our second loss hard, is because I had the bump starting, and after the surgery, I still had that. So I couldn't wear normal jeans. I couldn't wear my normal pants, but maternity pants just slid right down because it wasn't big enough. So it was like this weird phase where it was a constant reminder that you can't zip up your pants all the way, but there's no baby there. Yeah. And that was very hard. And I remember wearing some maternity clothes, and coworkers who knew me well and were like family basically were like, isn't that a maternity shirt? And I'm like, yes, and I'm going to wear it, dang it, because I still look like I should be pregnant. So I'm going to wear this shirt. And, you know, I didn't take them out of my closet because I was going to wear them. I took the time to bring them out of storage and to wash them and to hang them up just for it to be gone. And that small amount of time, I'm going to keep wearing the shirts. And that was weirdly part of my grieving process.
Yeah. It's weirdly one of those small, like, it's, you never know what's going to actually get you through a grieving process, right?
Yeah.
You never actually know. And in this case, you know, it was maternity clothes kind of helped in a strange way, which is not something that, I mean, I guess I wouldn't ever even have thought something like that. So, I mean, that's a plus, right?
Yeah.
So here's a question that just came to me thinking, hearing you tell that is, have you thought about how are you going to tell this to our girls when they're older and when they start talking about having babies?
I honestly hadn't given it much thought. I think the biggest thing for me is I don't think I'd like warn them per se because I don't want to freak them out.
Sure.
But just like you talked about last time, what not to say, what not to do. Like we have a very intimate knowledge of that. And I was watching a Brene Brown clip and she was talking about the difference between sympathy and empathy. And basically, you know, people who are sympathetic might be like, ooh, I'm so sorry, that sucks. But at least you could get pregnant.
Yeah.
At least you can try again. At least you know, those kinds of things. Whereas somebody who is empathetic is going to say, oh my gosh, that sucks. Climb down into your pit of despair with you and sit and cry.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's great to have people say nice things and be there and try and comfort you. But at the end of the day, nothing can be said that will make it better. There is no sentence that starts with at least that will make the person feel better. And just knowing that, I think if our girls were to go through a miscarriage, just being there for them and sitting with them and crying with them and just, it sucks. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most that I could do for them. You know, talking to them. I mean, I don't know personally, but, you know, like on Instagram, I'll follow someone and they have lost even an infant, right, to like SIDS, or have had miscarriages, or, you know, things that get swept under the rug quite easily, and or a stillborn. And a very profound thing that I have come to lately in that kind of community is when people ask about those that you have lost, like they're part of your family, and like, how are they doing? How are you doing? You know, like just not skirting away from bringing that up.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Like the girls that we lost are our girls, and to have people ask about them is actually not painful for me, at least. I can't speak for you, but it's not painful for me because I feel like, again, we named them to validate that they're people and our daughters. And so to have other people ask about them, or, you know, just bring them up, or, you know, even just a simple, I wish I could have met them, you know, like,
oh, for sure,
is, it just validates their personhood, I guess. And that is even helpful. And so I don't think I would warn them. I don't think I would warn other people. I think we just know better how to comfort and be there for somebody who's going through it.
For sure. Is there, looking back, is there anything, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, right? Is there anything you would do differently now, like you wish you had done differently back then? Like if get help sooner for your depression or talk about it or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Professional help, man, when you are having thoughts of just driving off of a cliff, that's a good indicator that you need some help. And I didn't get help then. And again, it's to this day amazing to me that I am still here and we are still here, and we have 2 girls destroying our house on the daily. But definitely wish that I would have gotten professional help.
Yeah.
That is something that, I mean, you can't go back and change it now, but I do regret not reaching out for help. I felt like I couldn't, like this shouldn't be this big of a deal because of how it's so taboo and it's so just swept under the rug. And you start talking about your experience and people come out of the woodworks. Oh yeah, my wife had a miscarriage. Oh yeah, I had 3. Oh yeah, my sister lost 4 babies and she just gave up. You know, like people come out of the woodworks. It's way more common than I think anyone understands. It doesn't, knowing that it's common doesn't decrease the terribleness of it, but just knowing that there are more people out there than what you think, you know, I definitely think it would have helped to get professional help, and knowing that yes, it's common, but it's still a severe trauma and you need help to work through it.
Definitely. I think I think it takes a lot to come on and talk about this. And so thank you.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not something that you want anybody to go through.
No.
But the hope is that these conversations and these stories over the last 2 episodes will help somebody.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, I will give this opportunity to you. Is there anything that you want to ask me, knowing that now we've gone through kind of 2 episodes of this?
I guess a question that I have had is going back to the first. Mm-hmm. Having your wife come to you and basically ask you if you think you should still be married.
Oh, yeah.
Is difficult, I would imagine.
Sure.
I guess I'm just curious, like, what was going through your mind then in that time?
When you specifically brought that up, or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, the Christmas trip was very much I think I had opened up first about my severity of depression with that, should we even be married anymore? And then after that, I felt like, not that I was an open book per se, but I was more open to you about how badly I was feeling. And the Christmas trip was because you were just watching me one day and you were like, we have to get out of here. We have to go see family. Like, I think you could see how severely depressed I was, and that you knew that we just needed to be around family. And just watching your wife go through that, but you also have, you know, feelings and emotions around all of this. It's not just because I was the one that was physically pregnant. You know, how was that for you to try and navigate your own feelings when I was that broken?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess that's a loaded question, right? I would say it wasn't easy, but it was also scary. It was trying to make sure that there was enough emotion shown, but then also not too much to where it was like, I didn't want you to think, oh, are you trying to be sadder than me? Like there was this weird like thought in my brain that if I was over emotional, like outwardly, that there would be, I don't know, a weird competition or something with who was affected more in this moment, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And it was, you were more blunt on a lot of things. So it was like, okay, gotta not play, like not worried about like if I say something she's just walk out the door. Like there was never like that fear, but it was like, okay, what actually matters? Not just like when you have a care on, oh well, I just want it to be like this, so I'm gonna be whatever and have it go my way. It was like, what actually matters, what really matters in this situation, and be more cognizant of that, and not just normal like everyday stuff.
Reacting to
so it was like
what I said.
It was like twofold. It was trying to be there for you and not get offended by some blunt things every once in a while, right? But then also like kind of keep your emotions in check.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to come out like stifled or anything like that. It's just there was a lot more awareness, I think. Like we will all have our time. And at this exact moment, this is your time.
Yeah.
Right? And I will have moments later on where I can go through it however I need to go through it, but in this exact moment, this is you. This is where you need to be supported, and this is where you need to have someone there for you, and so to get you through it.
Yeah.
So that was...
Well, and I will say, well, I'm sorry that it was that way. That's probably why we're still married.
Yeah.
Because I don't. It's kind of a foggy area, especially when you're that depressed. Coming out of it and looking back on it, it is very probably one of the most unclear parts of my life. I remember my first car's license plate, number. My memory is pretty dang good, but that area, I can remember bits and pieces vividly, but overall, it's definitely foggy, and I know myself.
Yeah.
And I know probably things that I said to you in that phase. And I think that if you had handled it differently, I don't know if we would be married still.
Sure.
I think, again, I'm sorry, but I think that you handling it that way is the best thing, because if you had handled it differently, I think I was being so blunt because I was at rock bottom.
Sure.
And it's almost like, just try me, kind of a thing, just say the wrong thing and help push me over the edge. And you reacting in the way that you did, I think saved not just our marriage, but probably me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. It was not a calculated decision. It wasn't like oh, well, I'm just so smart and mature that I can come up with. It was kind of just, well, I'm going to go this route and see what happens type of situation. And luckily it worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have, we'll never know if it reacted another way, how it would have gone. But
Sure.
I'm glad it did,
Yeah.
obviously. But, I think we're both stronger for it. Right.
Yeah.
And we're closer for it too.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of goes back to my first point, communication. Communication is key.
Do you have any more? Okay, because I was going to go into the... So, like, I mean, communication is key. And that's kind of... I don't know, I think a lot of what we talk about on here so far is a lot of it is communication, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that can be downplayed.
No.
The communication is the best. So, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for telling us these things. And so I'm actually going to do what we normally do to end the show, but I'm going to do it with you this time. So in this past week, is there anything that you learned that you'd like to share with?
Oh boy. I've learned that almost 4-year-old girls are very hard. Our oldest has been having some rough bedtimes, and the kind that have you pulling your hair out and banging your head against the wall because you're just so frustrated. And I feel bad because I constantly have to remind myself that I have 30 plus years of intelligence and emotional intelligence, and she has not even 4 yet. But it's been rough. And one thing that in my Googling 4-year-old bedtime struggles, fear, I found that sometimes it's fear-based, and that they don't know how to communicate that they're scared about something necessarily. And like last night, she has this shelf thing in her room, and she wanted it out. And it wasn't until I asked her, like, are you afraid of something? Like, what is going on here? Why are you so against bedtime? And she said, the shelf. I don't like that shelf. And it was just this little shelf that her baby monitor used to be on that we had taken out. And I took it out. And last night, that seemed to help. Tonight, it wasn't a full win, but she had a nightlight behind her little tent in her room. And she finally was able to tell me, I don't like that light behind the tent. And I don't know why, but I said, okay. And I took it out. And then she kind of looked over again and she goes, oh no, wait, I think I like it better in. And so I put it back in. But I guess I'm just learning that it's not always just defiance, that there are things behind the defiance that are bigger, that she just doesn't know how to communicate yet. So that's my takeaway, is it's not always what it seems. It could be deeper than you're thinking, that she's just being a pain in the butt.
Sure. I get that. I guess what I learned from this week is that you have to lean on the people around you a lot.
Yeah.
And, it seems to be a recurring thing, but a busier week this week, but it was more after hours stuff, that there are obligations that you have to go to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
They pop up, but having someone, specifically you in this case, be able to kind of pivot and be the main person at home for that time that is needed is a huge help. And knowing that you're there and the girls are taken care of, and it gives me the ability to focus on what I needed to do. And I think that is something that has taken a while to come to fruition for at least us. I think not the trust part or anything, but just the understanding that some things just have to happen, right?
Yeah.
And then it's I'd say cost of doing business, I guess, is, cost of doing parenthood is sometimes someone's got to be the go-to more sometimes than others. And knowing that pendulum will swing back the other direction, and there's going to be times where I'm going to be, heavy in baby mode, all week. And that's totally cool. I mean, it's parenthood, right? You know, you got to be able to change on a dime. And, a few months ago, you called me while I was at work and was like, our youngest daughter is stuck in her pacifier and you got to get over to the daycare, and ran over there and, got her finger free and all that stuff. And it's, there's always going to be times where you kind of ebb and flow on who's going to be the lead. So that was kind of my takeaway, is really understanding that having that partner that is there and can pick up the slack when you're not is really key.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So thank you again, dear. For being on. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
This wasn't weird or anything. But for all of you listening, thank you. This has been, it's been a very informative last 2 kind of episodes. I mean, at least for me, I hope for you too. And like I said last time, if it's at least touches one person, and I heard feedback this week that it did help at least one person, and that was very meaningful to know that sharing these stories and sharing these experiences helps others is kind of why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And thank you again, just everybody out there, and please continue to listen and tell your friends, and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, come to our website at twodads1show.com, come to our Instagram account, leave a message, drop us a comment on a picture, something. Two Dads One Show podcast, and then also our Twitter account. It's Two Dads One Show. Thank you again, and we will see you next week.